The woman I married for 22 years served me divorce papers with the same tone she uses when asking if we're out of almond milk. She placed the envelope next to my coffee cup like it was a coupon for dish soap. No shaking hands. No apology. Just that stupid robe she bought on her solo wellness retreat. The one she wore when she came home smelling like smoked wood and someone else's cologne. It's not personal, she said, pouring herself tea. It's just math. I looked at the papers. No eye contact. She was already scrolling her phone, smirking at something. Probably drafting the post she'd upload before noon. Her way of letting the world know that the gears were in motion. She always liked a little public validation to sweeten her private venom. By lunch, she'd posted the first strike. A carefully edited selfie in front of our bedroom mirror. Filters maxed, smile weaponized. The caption? He's going to lose everything. Hashtag fresh start, hashtag no more lies. Within minutes, her friends, especially the ones I always suspected didn't like me, started liking, hearting, clapping. The virtual equivalent of popping champagne while someone else's life burns down. I didn't reply, didn't text, didn't even read the comments. Instead, I walked to the den, opened the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet, pulled out the flash drive in the unmarked envelope, and plugged it into the secured laptop I keep offline. File name, template, contingency protocol. Last modified, November 2020. 3.5 years before she made her grand exit. Because what Danielle never understood is that quiet men don't mean stupid. We just wait longer. We don't raise our voice. We build fortresses while everyone's too busy underestimating us. And to the 97% of you listening right now who haven't subscribed, this story, this exact moment is why you should. Every view, every new follower helps the team keep telling these stories with the raw truth intact. So if you're still with me, hit that button. It matters more than you think. Now back to Danielle. She thought she was detonating my life. What she didn't know was that the wires had already been cut. The moment she handed me those papers, I wasn't hurt. I wasn't even surprised. I felt calm, like I just flipped a breaker during a storm and heard the power flick off in the distance. The protocol wasn't flashy. It wasn't dramatic, but it was thorough. While Danielle was busy decorating the living room with quartz coasters and hosting wine nights with women who whispered just loud enough, I was reallocating, restructuring, reclassifying assets under entities she didn't know existed, because she never asked. She never thought to ask. She thought the house was ours. It was, until it wasn't. She thought the joint investment account was growing for both of us. It had been, until the bylaws changed. She thought the retirement plan I'd built over 2 decades would pad her future. She was half right. She believed she could humiliate me publicly and feast privately. But what Danielle never once considered is that the man who lets you feel smarter for long enough is usually the one setting the trap. So when she posted that caption, tagging it with hashtag fresh start, she truly believed she had the upper hand. She had no idea the start she was celebrating was actually an ending, and not mine. I didn't block her. I didn't retaliate. I just printed a single-page checklist from the file and laid it flat on my desk. Line 1, notify estate architect. Line 2, secure updated trust distribution. Line 3, initiate strategic withdrawal from joint holding corp. The rest could wait. She went out that evening, probably to gloat, probably to clink glasses and rehearse her new narrative. How she'd taken back control. But it wasn't control she'd taken. It was bait. And in less than 24 hours, the first crack in her illusion would arrive, disguised as a friendly phone call from someone she trusted. Let her have tonight. Let her smile for the camera. Because by tomorrow afternoon, her world wouldn't be trending. It'd be unraveling. She said it loud enough for me to hear, which told me she wanted me to hear it. That was her thing. Passive slaps wrapped in sugar. I married a numbers guy, not a man, she told her sister, perched at the kitchen island with a glass of Pinot and zero shame. He still thinks his little restructuring company matters. It's cute, honestly. I stood in the hallway, just out of sight, holding a box of printer paper and the last thread of dignity. It wasn't the insult that burned. It was the timing. 2 days earlier, I'd landed a contract that would funnel 7 figures in deferred equity through our backdoor entity over the next 4 years. A deal I spent 18 months preparing. She didn't ask about it. Didn't even notice the champagne chilling in the back of the fridge. She thought I was small, and that made her reckless. That night, while she snored beside me, I emailed an old friend, James, estate architect, SEC compliance nerd, and the kind of man who once helped a CEO vanish 5 commercial properties from public exposure during a merger dispute. He didn't ask why I was reaching out. He just said, "Come to the house. We'll talk in the workshop." By the end of the week, the gears were turning. We started with a generational bypass trust, a long technical name for a legal black hole. Designed to protect assets for hypothetical grandchildren, it rerouted property lines through future bloodlines. Sound confusing? Good. It was supposed to be, because confusion is a wall. And Danielle? She never learned how to climb. Next, we moved the core of my business, McLean Strategic, into a Delaware holding firm, restructured as an S-corp under a parent entity she'd never heard of. On paper, I became a salaried employee earning mid-6 figures. In reality, the company profits cycled through controlled distributions outside of marital reach. She thought we had shared accounts. Technically true, but I built a scaffold of mirror accounts, identical in layout, differing in control. A casual glance would see nothing amiss. But peel back one layer and you'd realize that ownership wasn't joint. It was staggered, funneled, buried. I moved slowly, quietly, never skipped date night, never raised a flag. When she suggested we refinance the house, I agreed, and used the opportunity to restructure the title under a blind LLC nested in the trust. She signed the paperwork without reading it, more focused on the new patio furniture than the asset she was silently relinquishing. At the 1-year mark, I rerouted our charitable giving. Not because I cared about tax write-offs, but because charities meant control of funds that no longer showed up in our taxable income. They were donations with board seats attached. And I made sure Danielle never saw the invitation letters. She stayed distracted. Between Pilates instructors who texted at midnight and yoga retreats that accidentally overbooked her with single men, she gave me cover. Every affair, every flirtation was a gift. The more she strayed, the less she noticed the floor being pulled from under her. She thought I didn't know. She thought I was too passive to care. What she didn't realize is that some men don't fight when they're insulted. They blueprint. The garage became my war room. Inside an old metal filing cabinet behind dusty fishing gear, I stored printouts, bank statements, revised titles, signed authorizations. A fortress of paper behind a wall of patience. I didn't need to use it then. I wasn't planning an attack. I was planning survival. And Danielle? She was too busy curating her life for strangers on Instagram to notice the strange thing missing from our fridge. Like the champagne I never opened. That bottle sat untouched on the bottom shelf for over 2 years. Until the day she handed me divorce papers. And I smiled. Because the cork was never meant for celebration. It was meant for detonation. The Friday after she served the papers, Danielle disappeared into what she called her reset weekend. Vineyard getaway. Girls only. 2 hours north in wine country, where self-importance is fermented in oak barrels and served with goat cheese. She left in a white blouse and oversized sunglasses, dragging a rose-gold suitcase and humming like she just got promoted to CEO of her own freedom. "Don't wait up," she chirped. "We'll be doing bottomless tastings and deep healing." Translation. Giggling over how cleverly she ditched the man who built her lifestyle while pretending to be oppressed by quartz countertops and backyard fire pits. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that while she sipped her celebratory Pinot Grigio, I sat across from a man named Louis Kwan in a corner booth of a quiet steakhouse 2 towns over. Succession planner, compliance tactician, the kind of guy who reads IRS footnotes for sport and once helped a senator's ex-wife walk away with nothing but her maiden name and a revoked Costco membership. We didn't toast. We signed. Quietly. 2 new layers of asset protection went live that afternoon. One wrapped around the Delaware parent like armor. The other obscured passive income streams by converting royalties into a licensing model held under a foreign-sourced intangible asset trust. Danielle was posting memes. Divorced. Not broke. Upgrade season. A boomerang of her clinking glasses with her friends. For women who always smiled at me like I was the background noise in their spa playlist. The caption read, "He thought he could just coast forever. Honey, I got receipts." And rights. She was proud. Loud. Dangerous in that uniquely modern way where clout counts more than substance. The kind of pride that makes people mistake likes for leverage. At lunch that Saturday, according to one of her more indiscreet friends, who'd looped me in long ago, Danielle raised a glass and said, "He won't know what hit him. The house, the retirement, half's mine by law. By Monday, my attorney's going to file a motion for full control." The table laughed. Someone muttered, "Cheers to the clean out." Meanwhile, I was sitting with Louis and a second man, Julian, from an auditing firm that specializes in pre-litigation exposure mitigation. Fancy way of saying, we seal leaks before they drip. We reviewed everything. Not just what Danielle knew about, but the subtle details, like how she still used the joint Visa card linked to a rewards account I'd already drained into a separate benefit pool under my name. Or how she believed her name on the property title meant control, when in fact it was just a placeholder held in tenancy under a layered trust amendment she never read before signing. She's not going to be able to touch this, Julian said, tapping the final page. She'll try, I said. She wants the story more than the money. That's when Lewis added, then we give her the story, just not the ending she thinks she's written. Danielle didn't come home Sunday night. Her story was too good. She wanted the Instagram arc, the pre-revenge glow, her own little eat, pray, litigate fantasy. She didn't realize that divorcing me wasn't a rebellion. It was walking into a negotiation I'd already finished writing. She called her lawyer Monday morning and demanded urgency. Push for a full audit, she barked into the phone, thinking volume was power. He's hiding something. I want discovery now. They did. They filed. And I let them. Because sometimes the most effective trap is the one that looks wide open. She answered the call like a queen expecting a tribute. Sitting cross-legged on the edge of her bed, Danielle was still wearing the white hotel robe she'd accidentally taken from the Vineyard suite. The one with the monogram she swore she didn't notice when she stuffed it into her weekender. She had her phone on speaker, coffee in one hand, and a face mask drying like cracked paint. Daniel, she said breezily. I hope you're calling with good news. The voice on the other end didn't return the energy. Hi, Danielle. It's about the documents you asked for. The joint portfolio holdings, the trust distribution records. She rolled her eyes at her reflection. Please don't tell me there's a delay. I'm meeting with Karen this afternoon and I want a number I can throw on the table. Something dramatic. Pause. Then came the sentence that would split her posture in half. I think you may want to take a seat. Silence. Not the sassy kind she used when making a point, but the confused, unfamiliar kind. Like someone had unplugged the speakers to her ego. What do you mean? Take a seat? I've reviewed the revisions on the McLean Family Trust. The one you believed included the full retirement and asset bundle. He said it like a man delivering bad news to someone who thinks they're still in control of the weather. Yes, she replied, now sitting up straighter. Our trust. We set it up 7 years ago. It was mutual. It was, he said carefully. Until it wasn't. Her head tilted. Daniel, speak clearly. There's a notarized amendment dated February 3rd, 3 years ago. It restructures the beneficiary chain. Your name no longer appears as a successor or active party to distribution. She blinked. What? Your name, he repeated, is not listed anywhere within the current trust documentation. Mark is listed as the sole managing trustee. All secondary benefits are reallocated to. He hesitated. To who? To your daughter. And to a generational clause designed for future descendants. The structuring is robust. Wait. Danielle stood up now, pacing. Are you saying I'm not entitled to anything in the trust? I'm saying, Daniel said slowly, that what you believe to be jointly held is now contractually outside the scope of marital distribution, and it has been for a while. She started muttering to herself, hands gesturing at the air like she could swipe the truth away. This has to be a mistake. I signed those papers. I remember the meeting. He said it was just a procedural thing, a refinance or something. Danielle, I believe he had you sign a title reassignment under the guise of a refinancing restructure. The language would have been embedded in the 5th addendum. I didn't read the 5th addendum. I suspect that was the point. Now her voice cracked. But the house, the joint account, the holding corp. Danielle, he interrupted, not unkindly. There is no joint account. There's a mirrored account, with your name as a cardholder, not an owner. The world, which only hours earlier had been clinking glasses with her, turned strangely quiet in that room. Not in a tragic way, in a way that made everything feel artificial, fragile. Her reflection stared back at her in the mirror. The face mask was cracking down her cheek like plaster. She hung up without saying goodbye. The robe she loved now felt like a costume. The coffee had gone cold. The phone, once her weapon of choice, lay face down on the bed like a corpse. Danielle walked to the window, staring out over the backyard she once bragged about at book club. It was hers. She decorated it. She even picked the shade of stain on the deck. But it wasn't hers anymore. Not really. It was never hers. She just didn't ask the right questions. And Mark? He didn't hide anything. He just stopped correcting her assumptions. Which, as she was finally learning, is far more dangerous. Courtrooms aren't loud like they are in movies. They're quiet in that unnerving, bureaucratic kind of way. Like a dentist's office where the pain doesn't come from drills but from words you can't take back. Danielle strutted into that hearing like she was entering a brunch reservation. All tailored beige blazer and smug certainty. The kind of outfit meant to say, I'm calm. I've already won. I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. Her attorney, a man she found through her cousin's golf instructor's very good divorce lawyer, was already puffed up in his chair, a folder of assumptions in his hand, and a grin that read like he thought I was the idiot in the room. My attorney, on the other hand, didn't smile. Joel Connors doesn't do expressions. He specializes in estate law, cross-jurisdictional protections, and divorce cases involving seven-figure exits. He's the kind of man who quotes from trust case precedents instead of Bible verses. The only thing theatrical about him is the thickness of his binders. The judge glanced between us, adjusted her glasses, and motioned for opening remarks. Danielle's lawyer was eager. Your Honor, my client is seeking an equitable division of marital assets as per the statute. Half of all jointly held property, investments, retirement accounts, and real estate acquired during the duration of the marriage, which was 22 years, Danielle added, folding her arms. Almost all of his success happened during that time. Noted, the judge replied dryly. Joel said nothing at first, just opened a leather binder the width of a dinner plate and slid it across the table with the precision of someone placing an explosive device. Exhibit A, he said quietly. The judge raised an eyebrow and began flipping through the contents. Her pace slowed as the pages turned. Danielle, watching like a hawk, leaned forward as if she could will the contents back into her favor. Inside the binder, signed affidavits, notarized amendments, time-stamped records of trust restructuring, LLC transfers, foreign account exemptions, and corporate reclassifications. Each asset carved away from the marital web before any divorce filing window could trigger automatic spousal claims. All legal, all audited, all dated with what might as well have been a knife. The judge stopped at one page and frowned. These trust amendments, they're from 2020. Danielle's brow furrowed. What does that mean? The judge looked up. It means they were executed well outside the standard clawback window. These are legally compliant preemptive transfers. Your name doesn't appear on any of them. Danielle's lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor, if I may. No, she interrupted, voice tight. Fix it. He looked at her, stone still. I said fix it. Joel folded his hands. The judge turned another page, then glanced over the rim of her glasses. You're asking for half of assets that were moved years ago into structures your name was never attached to. That's not how this works. Danielle stared at her lawyer now, panic blooming under her eyes. He avoided her gaze. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her confidence leaked out of her like a punctured tire. No meme, no post, no smug toast with girlfriends was going to plug the hole in this room. Because here's the thing about the law. It doesn't care how confident you feel. It only cares how prepared you were. And she had come armed with assumptions. I came armed with paper. By the time the judge declared a recess, Danielle hadn't moved an inch. Her lawyer had slid the binder back toward Joel without saying a word, like he was returning a weapon he didn't know how to use. Outside the courtroom, she pulled her phone out, probably to find someone to blame. Maybe me, maybe her lawyer, maybe karma. But all the filters in the world couldn't hide the look on her face. It wasn't anger. It was disbelief. Because somewhere deep in her, for the first time, Danielle realized the story she'd been telling herself. The one where she was the brilliant, brave woman divorcing the fool, wasn't just off. It was upside down. First, she thought it was a glitch. She refreshed the post twice. Then again. The numbers weren't moving. No new comments, no likes, no heart emojis under her fresh start selfie. The one where she captioned it, he's going to lose everything. The one that had racked up dozens of hearts, champagne gifts, and laugh reacts in the first hour. But now, just stillness. Even worse, the comments that were there had shifted. One was gone completely, deleted. It was from her old high school friend, Jenna, who had originally replied, "So proud of you. Babe, time to level up." Now, Nothing. Just an empty space where that validation used to be. She scrolled further. Another name was missing altogether. Shelley. Her college roommate. They talked almost weekly. Gone. Not just from the post. From her followers. Danielle's throat tightened. She called her cousin Marcy, the one who always took her side, even when she was blatantly wrong. Straight to voicemail. Weird. She tried again. Still nothing. And for the first time, the thought crept in, not about money, not about trust documents or title amendments, but about perception. Narrative. She had built a whole public persona around being the wronged wife. The strong woman starting over. She crafted it carefully. Wine glasses, filtered smiles, soft lighting, little quotes about growth and walking away from what no longer serves you. But now, the algorithm was silent. At the salon that week, she leaned back in the shampoo chair while Gina, her stylist of 5 years, massaged her scalp. Danielle had always liked Gina. A little too chatty sometimes, but loyal, supportive, or so she thought. "So, I saw your post," Gina said casually. Danielle tilted her head. "MHM. Gina hesitated. Just out of curiosity. Wasn't the business technically Mark's? I mean, didn't he build it before you guys got married?" Danielle sat up too fast, shampoo still in her hair. "Excuse me?" "Oh, I'm not judging," Gina backpedaled. "Just, people have been talking. Like, I didn't even know he had those disaster relief patents. That's kinda huge, right?" Danielle forced a laugh, too high-pitched. "Who's talking?" Gina shrugged. "I don't know, people. Clients. Everyone saw your post. And then someone mentioned the court hearing. Said your lawyer looked like he'd swallowed a sock." She rinsed in silence after that. Back at home, Danielle sat at her vanity, scrolling again. The memes weren't hitting like they used to. She posted a new one anyway, something vague and passive-aggressive. "Sometimes the people you take a bullet for are the ones holding the gun." 2 likes. One from a random skincare page. One from a friend of a friend who'd probably clicked it by accident. She pulled open Messenger and typed out a message to her Pilates group thread. "Hey ladies, wine night Friday?" No response. She retyped, "Free Friday night. Who's in?" Still nothing. She deleted the message and sat staring at the cursor, blinking like a slow metronome. Something had shifted. She could feel it. The energy. The tone. The way people looked at her at the gym, or worse, didn't. And it wasn't just that Mark had been smarter, or colder, or more prepared. It was that the story she told didn't hold up when the lights came on. When the dust settled, and the world looked again, they didn't see a warrior. They saw a woman who posted a victory lap before crossing the finish line. And now the stands were empty, because nothing turns an audience colder than realizing the villain isn't who you thought it was. It's who told the story first. The conference room wasn't what she expected. No long oak table, no dramatic exchanges, no gasps or gavel bangs. Just muted gray walls, stale coffee, and a mediator with tired eyes who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Danielle arrived in black heels and a camel-colored blazer, clearly dressed for a photo that would never be taken. "I came in 5 minutes late. Not to be petty, just to make her wait." She'd spent years filling silence with assumptions. "I figured I'd let her try it one more time. Let's keep this productive," the mediator began, sliding printed copies of the proposal across the table. "One copy for her. One for me. One for the ghost of who we used to be." Danielle glanced at the paperwork with the curled lip of someone expecting caviar but finding discount tuna. "You're kidding," she scoffed. "You think this is fair?" I didn't answer. I'd learned long ago that her questions weren't really questions. They were tests, and I stopped taking them when I realized she graded on a curve tilted toward herself. The proposal was simple. She'd keep the beachfront condo, paid off, upgraded, and fully titled. The Lexus too. I even offered a 6-month bridge payment to cover her boutique marketing job's very inconsistent income. The one she only got because my name opened the interview door. In exchange, she waived all rights to McLean Strategic, the family trust, and any future legal claims on profits, distributions, or associated patents. She laughed dry, brittle. "You're throwing me crumbs from a table I helped build." That's when I spoke. Calm. Even. No sarcasm this time. Just truth delivered like a scalpel. "I'm giving you what you never earned. And nothing you tried to steal." Her lawyer shifted uncomfortably. The mediator looked at her hands. Danielle's face hardened, the edges of her mascara already fraying under the strain. "I was there for every late night. Every deal you stressed over. You wouldn't have made it without me. You were there. I nodded. Just not watching the same game. She looked to her lawyer like a child realizing the rules don't apply to everyone equally. We're not accepting this. Her attorney didn't respond. He just cleared his throat and asked the mediator for a moment to speak privately. They stepped into the hall. She looked back once, hoping I'd flinch. I didn't. Through the glass wall, I watched their silhouettes argue. Her arms flailed. His hands stayed in his pockets. He shook his head once, twice, then leaned in and whispered something short. Final. When they returned, she was silent. Would you like to respond to the offer? The mediator asked. Danielle didn't speak. She signed the page. Each stroke of the pen like a brick tumbling from the image she'd spent years building. Her leverage hadn't just weakened. It had never existed. What she thought was a fistful of cards was just the back of the deck. And now the game was over. I slid my copy back across the table and stood up. She didn't look at me, didn't say goodbye. She didn't need to, because silence is clearest when the echo dies. She didn't cry right away. Danielle doesn't believe in losing quietly, but she also doesn't believe in showing cracks. At least not in courtrooms, not in emails, and definitely not in front of me. That's why when the mediation failed to deliver what she thought was hers, she did what entitled people do when their plans collapse. She escalated. She wasn't going to settle with a condo and a car. No, she wanted the whole correction. She wanted a reversal. So she told her legal team to go after the trust amendments. Dig, file, subpoena. Her tone in the emails was urgent, clipped. He tricked me. I signed things I didn't understand. I was misled. She wanted to introduce the idea of fraud, coercion, even mental fatigue. Anything that could punch a hole in the airtight vault I'd spent years building. She didn't understand that some vaults don't need locks. They're sealed in time. They issued the subpoena to James Harlan, my estate planner. The man whose signature is on every page, every clause, every time-stamped restructuring I'd executed years prior. She thought bringing him into court would be the moment the truth cracked. That maybe, just maybe, he'd blink under pressure and admit I'd tricked her. Maybe he'd stutter. Maybe he'd flinch. He didn't. James walked in with a leather folio, nodded once to the judge, and submitted the paperwork. Exhibits A through E, he said. Original filings, each notarized and witnessed by a third party. Restructuring dated and executed in compliance with pre-disclosure legal windows. The judge barely glanced at Danielle's attorney before turning back to James. Were these changes initiated under duress? No, Your Honor. Initiated during peacetime within the marriage. Requested by Mr. McLean as part of succession planning. Mrs. McLean signed one of the transfer documents voluntarily during a routine refinance. No legal opposition was raised at the time. Danielle's attorney pushed. Was she fully informed of what she was signing? James looked him dead in the eye. She didn't ask. The judge closed the folder. There is no basis for this challenge. The documents stand. This court will not be revisiting asset allocation already deemed compliant. Just like that. No fanfare. No drama. No last-minute lifeline. Just a bureaucratic bullet to the head of her final hope. Outside, as the court doors closed behind us, her lawyer looked like someone who just finished a funeral he wasn't emotionally prepared for. There's nothing to claw back, he muttered. Not to her. To himself, maybe. Or the air. Danielle was gripping her phone so tightly I thought it might shatter. She turned to him slowly, face pale. Mascara smudged at the corners like someone who had fought a war in a glass box. There must be something left, she whispered. He didn't answer. Because there wasn't. She played every card. Pushed every chip forward. And the house didn't just win. Never played. She sat down on the concrete bench outside the courthouse like her legs had been cut from under her. For the first time, she didn't reach for her phone. Didn't pose. Didn't perform. She just stared at the ground. Because this wasn't humiliation from a man shouting. This was something colder. This was watching a structure she thought she built slowly disassemble itself without a sound, and realizing that the person who dismantled it was the one she underestimated most. Me. And now, there was no property to divide, no accounts to freeze, no audience to cheer her on, just the echo of a war she thought she'd win, and a silence she couldn't manipulate. Danielle signed the final documents on a Thursday morning in a downtown office so beige and sterile it could have doubled as a dentist's waiting room. The pen she used was one of those cheap, plastic promotional ones that read, Bennett and Associates in chipped silver lettering. She asked if she could keep it. No one answered. Across the table sat only her attorney and the notary. No cameras. No closing speech. No Mark. She wore black, head to toe. Maybe she thought it gave her presence or dignity. But black only magnifies silence. And that room had plenty. Before she signed, her attorney slid a thick packet across the table, clipped at the corner. The NDA, he said. She didn't open it. Didn't read it. Just stared at the cover page for a full minute. No interviews. No podcasts. No memoirs about reinvention. No secondhand stories to sell to lifestyle blogs about rediscovering herself. She could tell the truth, sure, just not my truth. And not our truth. Because that belonged, contractually and permanently, to no one but me. Is this normal? She asked, her voice thinner than she meant it to be. It is now, her lawyer replied. She signed, initialed, slid the pen back across the table without another word. When the last page was done, she glanced up. He's not coming? The lawyer didn't even blink. He sent a message. He pulled a small card from the side of his briefcase. Folded once, cream-colored. Danielle opened it with trembling fingers, expecting. What? An apology? A confession? A farewell? Just one sentence in clean handwriting. Control was never the goal. Protection was. She stared at the card, then at the table, then at the wall. Like maybe somewhere in that drywall was the man she used to know, hiding, watching, waiting for her to understand. But I wasn't watching. I wasn't waiting. And I wasn't coming. Because I didn't need her to lose. I just needed her not to win. After she left the office, Danielle sat in her car for an hour without starting it. Windows rolled up. Keys in her lap. The only sound was the distant thrum of traffic and the muffled ping of her phone. Notifications, probably. She didn't check them. When she finally got home, she walked into the living room of the condo she won, dropped her purse on the kitchen counter, and opened her phone. Instagram still showed the post. He's going to lose everything. Hashtag fresh start, hashtag no more lies. She stared at it. The comments were gone. The likes meant nothing. The hashtag read like a cruel joke. She tapped the 3 dots in the upper right corner. Delete post. Are you sure you want to delete this post? She hesitated. Only for a second. Then pressed yes. The screen refreshed. The post vanished. Like it had never existed. And for the first time in months, maybe years, she felt what silence really was, not power withheld, but presence removed. No victory. No revenge. No applause. Just absence. Because the battle didn't end in a bang. It ended when she realized there was no one left to fight. 6 months later, Danielle sat on the edge of her neatly staged condo sofa. The one she used for her rare posts now, soft beige with cream pillows she never leaned on. Watching a live stream that wasn't meant for her. It came through the charity's YouTube page. Clean angles. Polished lighting. A banner in the background that read, Honoring Innovation in Recovery Funding. At the center of the screen, a sleek podium. Behind it, Mark's daughter, grown, confident, and poised in a simple navy dress that mirrored her father's calm. The camera panned briefly over the room. Packed, glittering, familiar faces. Executives, donors, even that Senator Danielle used to follow on Twitter until he started liking Mark's posts instead of hers. Mark stood off to the side, not speaking yet, just listening as his daughter stepped up and smiled. The kind of smile that says, "You raised me right." "My father," she began, "never taught me to chase legacy. He taught me to build shelter, to build protection. Because what you protect is more important than what you collect." The audience stilled. She continued, clear and steady. "He always said, your legacy isn't what you build. It's who you protected while building it." A pause. The camera cut to Mark, hands folded in front of him, face unreadable. Not cold, not smug, just complete. Like a man who no longer owed the world an explanation. Danielle sat frozen. Her name was never mentioned. Not once. No reference to the marriage. No nod to the woman who used to be in all those family photos. No, we've all been through a lot. Or it wasn't always easy. Just the clean sweep of revision through presence. She wasn't part of the narrative. Not even the footnotes. Not even the ghost. The chat comments on the stream scrolled by fast. What a man. His daughter speaks like he does, sharp and real. McLean Strategic saved our county's flood budget. No joke. Danielle muted the laptop. Not that it helped. She could still hear it. In the space between her heartbeat and regret. She stood slowly and walked across the room. The condo was sterile now. No flowers, no framed photos. Nothing tied to memory. Just a curated echo chamber. It always felt like a rental, no matter how many scented candles she bought. She reached the mirror above the fireplace. The one she used for outfit checks before wine nights, back when people still replied to her texts. The reflection stared back, older now even with all the serums. Not just her face. Her eyes. Something in them had collapsed and never come back. She whispered, not dramatically, not theatrically, just quietly, to herself. He was never the fool. The words fell like confession. Not loud, not regretful, just final. Because the room she wanted to be in wasn't locked. It simply didn't exist for her anymore. And it never would again.